in the midst of a crisis, because then, and you can understand the emotions, you know, when law and order breaks down, most people say, well, just quit the killing, calm down things, you better bring more police in. And that's, you know, a pretty natural response, but not realizing that we have had too many policemen already and too many bureaucrats and too much federal government, too much taxes and all that. So it to me, the earlier the education occurs, the better. I think people have to know and understand why it's in their best interest, that the free market works better. People think that you have to sacrifice and all this. I don't think you have to sacrifice a thing. Freedom. If you get your freedom, you don't have to sacrifice anything, because you have your incentives. You can take care of yourself a lot better than the government, and that's a system that has worked. And unfortunately, we're about to give it up, and that's why I fear the day when law and order breaks down. People are questioning whether there'll be riots in our streets like there have been overseas already, and I suspect that the American people are like other people, and even in the 60s we had our riots and our shares of problems here. So people will act in a violent manner, and that's up for grabs. And you know, all factions then will be looking to get the powers and the strings of government. So we have a big job ahead of us.
So we're going into some very stormy waters?
No doubt. It's coming.
Congressman, no doubt you've probably heard about it or seen it, but CNN, MSNBC, Democracy Now!, they all singled you and I out specifically and played clips of you speaking in your Texas Straight Talk and clips of my radio/TV show where we talked about the Second Amendment being there, and it's in the Declaration of Independence, it's in the Bill of Rights, to defend against crime on the streets, but also against a tyrannical government. And they have tried to now demonize and imply that you and I and others are the progenitors in an asinine way of what happened in Tucson, which we now know was a schizophrenic who was politically a liberal. I'm not blaming the Democrats. But what do you think about the desperation? We saw Rachel Maddow and others go after your son and tell a laundry list of Dr. Ron Paul. And, of course, that backfired on him, only seemed to boost his approval rating when Clinton went and campaigned against him. Now we see them doing it against you and I because they see us as a threat because we're getting the truth out. What is your view on, A, the ratcheting up of their rhetoric, Congressman Steve Cohen calling Republicans Nazis a few days ago, and the fact that it's backfiring in every case from the polls we're seeing?
Well, there's a limit, and that says something for the American people. Maybe they won't buy into that, but they're certainly going to make the effort. And this is a frustration for me because I do make a diligent effort to try to work with honest, straightforward people who may be called progressives and liberals, because some of them are decent and they're honest, but they're not these demagogues. And those people who turn on you, their goal is more like the promotion of the Democrat Party or promoting of government power. So they might say they agree with us on a couple issues, but I sort them out, and some of them, the ones that you're talking about, are just the demagogues who may say one thing and say, "Oh yeah, we don't like this, we don't like that," but then they'll turn on you and they'll do anything to maintain their power or to discredit us for what we're doing.
Well, and it's also hypocritical. They're demonizing the First Amendment and talking about fairness doctrine for talk radio, FCC, jurisdiction over the Internet. This is all being announced while Matthews is calling white people crackers. Maddow is implying that we're causing violence. The congressman's calling Republicans Nazis. I mean, it's just incredible how they're trying to balkanize and turn the American people against each other. When you look at the polls, liberals, conservatives, libertarians, almost everybody's against the banker bailouts, the wars. I mean, the momentum is shifting towards freedom.
No doubt about that, but there's still a lot of people, and I think that you can say at the grassroots level that is the case. Our problem has been, it's taken a long time to build the bureaucracy. And when you think of these millions of people who are living off the government and work for the government, and they work in Washington, they're embedded into the political system, and so many in Congress, they have all clung to these views that they've held before. But the American people, are further ahead. I think the people are always ahead of the politicians, and hopefully we'll win out on this fight. But unfortunately, the opposition has a lot of guns. Isn't it interesting how they want to take our guns away, but everything that government does depends on a gun.
It's all about...
It's their guns against the guns of the civilians, but whether it's tax collection or telling you whether you can dig a ditch on your land and how you can use your land, you may be accosted by a federal agent with a gun. Everything they do has to be enforced with a gun, and it's a threat. So. They never talk about that kind of gun violence. How often have they been barging into the wrong houses with guns blaring and blowing up the places and looking for drugs that didn't exist and not even apologize and never compensate these people and sometimes hurt and kill some of these people, innocent people. And that's the kind of gun violence that ought to be rejected.
Absolutely. Mao Zedong said political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. Well, we're the people, and that's our check and balance. Congressman, in the 8 minutes we've got left with you, we have a prisonplanet.com, Infowars.com headline. Congressman, senator, or president, as you know, a lot of big scientific polls, the Hill newspaper, the Democratic affiliate, public policy polling, and others are finding that you're in the #1 or #2 seat to win the Texas Senate race for U.S. Senate, if you so choose. And at the same time, you've won the CPAC coveted Republican straw poll while giving an anti-war, anti-empire speech. I have to just give you my opinion. I believe, as running for president, you don't have as good a shot as winning, though you do have, I think, a pretty good shot, but you'll have a much more powerful educational platform, I'd say 10 times bigger than 2008, going into the critical crisis. But if you go for Senate, you've probably got a better chance of winning. Congressman, and of course, then you'd have even more power with the filibuster in the Senate. Congressman Ron Paul, that's, the question A, what are you looking at there? And B, you've said the people, if they're behind you, and if things continue to deteriorate right this, that folks will listen to you more, that you may run. I believe you're going to run because you know it's the right thing to do, and we win just by you running, being able to educate people. Where do you stand on this? People are chomping at the bit to know, and I saw your quotes in the news saying that you are interested in the Senate polls you've been seeing.
Well, unfortunately, I'm still very ambivalent about all this. I usually am not ambivalent on my views and what I do and what my plans are, but it does require a major decision, a personal decision, a family decision, a political decision, all of these things. So I'm pretty undecided on what to do, and I think it through. People keep asking me, do you think about doing this or that? And I admit it, I do. I think about it all the time, not only because I wonder what I'm going to do the rest of my life, but I often think about it because when I get on radio talk shows, they ask me these kind of questions. But I'm still pretty undecided on what I should do and what I can do and what I'll end up doing.
Well, I challenged your doctor and now senator's son when he was really just exploring it more than, I guess a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I said, look, Rand, you're going to win just by injecting real ideas. And I said, I believe you will win. And because, I'm no political rocket scientist, but I could look at the field in Kentucky. I could see the Tea Party movement that your supporters started 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And look, he's there. He's won. He went through hell, but he's there, and he did the right thing for his country and for humanity. And just as I asked you on air and off air before you ran for president very early on, I know many others did, said, Congressman, I know it's rough on your family, the attacks, the physical danger, but I said, you've got to do it. And you're a man of conscience, a man who has a big heart and who I know from your actions and your fruits, but also my discernment is the real deal. I don't think you have any choice but to run for president or bare minimum Senate. And it is your destiny, Congressman Ron Paul, in your almost 40 years of standing up for liberty. And so I'm drafting you right here, and I know my listeners are. And and if your health holds up, you've taken care of yourself, barring that, I just hope and pray, sir, that you do run for president. And I think the sooner you announce, the better, so we can get the money and the energy and the grassroots behind you. And I want you to know you've got my full support of our millions of listeners.
Well, I appreciate the comments. It's just real difficult. The one thing I can assure you and all your listeners is that it would be pretty hard for me to pack my bag and go and retire and live quietly hereafter, and not be involved. But no, regardless, I've been in and out of office. I've run for offices. I've won some, lose some, and all that. One thing is, it would be very hard for me to exist without working diligently to promote our cause, which is the cause of personal liberty and the things that I believe in, because I believe this is how people have an opportunity to improve themselves and live freely and creatively. So I'm convinced of all that. So whether it's in political office or whatever, I will be working as hard as I can to promote that cause.
Well, we know that. And, I mean, even if you just did the debates and didn't beat yourself to death flying everywhere, even if you did it electronically, which I think is the most effective. I think a lot of campaigning is outdated with the focus on the individual, getting out there in person. I mean, even if you did it electronically, and I mean, you've got to run, obviously, because of the educational points. But obviously, we respect your decision, and we'll appreciate you and support you regardless. But you can see, as Julius Caesar said, there is a tide in the affairs of men. When taken at the flood, leads on to fortune, and the fortune we seek is the jewel of liberty, as Thomas Jefferson said. And that jewel must be guarded jealously. And you are the great guardian of that jewel. Of anyone in the world, you are that light standing out like no other. And I don't think that you're going to not run. In my gut, I know you are. And, Congressman, we just really, from the bottom of our hearts, want to thank you for the great work you're doing. We've only got about 2 or 3 minutes left. In closing, taking sites on auditing and then reforming, abolishing the Fed. Where do you stand with your Periscope sites on that great warmock?
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and I tried to get a hearing in January, but Congress is still disorganized because it's newly created. So in February, the hearings are going to start. I did find out also that the rules prevent me from insisting that Bernanke come before a subcommittee, and he only comes before a full committee. That's just the way the rules are, like a Secretary of Treasury, too. But it doesn't keep me from pursuing all the views that we have to have, exposing the Fed, transparency of the Fed, teaching people why the Fed is responsible for the booms and the busts and the unemployment and the inflation. I mean, it is a hot topic. It's going to get hotter, and we're going to have our side well represented. And the hearings are not going to be huge. Sometimes they have 6 and 8 people come for hearings. Ours will be smaller, and they're going to be very deliberative, and there's going to be debate going on. I believe we're going to get a lot of attention. I think we can achieve a whole lot by this, and especially as we move into this crisis, because then once we expose the Fed, then we better start talking about a transition and how we get out of this. And already, the opposition, those at the World Bank, talked about, we might have to have a new currency. Maybe we ought to use a little bit of gold. So they want to neutralize us a little bit, but they want to control everything. So this is going to be our challenge. What are we going to replace the system with? And that's something I'll be working very hard on.
Well, Congressman, as you know, we're here at the crisis. They're going to try to use it to get even more power. We've got to deal with it now, and there you are, historically, at the perfect time and perfect place. Have a great weekend coming up, Congressman Ron Paul, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, with Paul Joseph Watson. Don't forget the V for Victory campaign launched today.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Hundreds of nations have fallen to tyranny in the last century alone. This is our last chance to not relive history.
As we're finishing off this agenda, they'll be pulling the rug from underneath Americans at home.
I have tremendous influence on our president and Congress, and they really are calling the shots.
I think it's incumbent upon all of us as American citizens to pay attention.
Fall of the Republic identifies the enemies of our nation, the criminal offshore cartel, hell-bent on destroying sovereignty, and on its ashes constructing world government.
Tim Geithner, Bernanke, they're arsonists. They're asking for more matches. And the Congress is saying, who do we make the check out to?